Hey, what's up, sports fans? How we doing today? Welcome back to another episode of Debategate here at the High Stakes Sports Debates Network, and everybody's heard the news, unless you live under a rock, that is. Odell Beckham Jr., Golden Boy, the National Football League suspended one game for his altercations on the field with cornerback Josh Norman of the Carolina Panthers. We are joined today to talk about this topic by the WBNY General Manager, Nicholas Lippa. Nick, I know this one's got you heated, brother. How you doing today?
Yeah, I'm a little livid right now with how everything's been being handled and really how everything's really being reported.
Right. Well, let's just jump right into this. Let's not keep the people waiting. I know you've got some harsh things to say about the NFL officiating and just this whole thing in general. So let's go, man. What are your thoughts on this Odell Beckham Jr. suspension? Did the punishment fit the crime?
Well, I would almost in every scenario say the punishment fits the crime. If this is, a third world, like out of body experience, like just looking at it from a general, it makes sense when you look at it. Like, okay, he did bad things. He should be held responsible.
Right.
But that's not really what we should be looking at as critics and fans of the NFL.
Right.
Really what should be looking at is, okay, we hold people responsible, right? But the fact of the matter is the NFL has dropped the ball many times with this, and this isn't their statement of, oh, now we're finally taking a stand. If that were the case, Odell Beckham punched a Bills player earlier this year.
Yeah, he did. And that went swept under the rug.
No fine.
Nothing.
No nothing. And this isn't because of a repeated offense. This is because of one shot taken at Josh Norman with many other shots in between. But the one head-to-head collision. But the problem that I really have with this is, again, the NFL isn't doing this because, this is the right thing to do and we have to hold people accountable for their actions. No, they're doing this because this is the PR move.
Yeah, it's about saving face, really.
That's all the NFL has done all year. We punish people when it financially comes to a point of where it's going to hurt the league or have people turning off the television. And you go, Nick, that's kind of a crazy statement. Well, let's think about it for a second. Point one, Odell Beckham did not get suspended for this earlier in the year. Okay, mm-hmm. And you go, well, okay, maybe it's his first offense. Okay, well, Ndamukong Suh did this last year to Aaron Rodgers.
Right.
Week 17, stepped on his calf, got no suspension.
Right.
Adam Pac-Man Jones, week 1, who is a multiple violator.
Yeah, he's a thug.
And you look at what he did at the beginning of the year. He ripped off Amari Cooper's helmet.
And hit him with it.
And it hit him. You're talking about full-on assault on the football field.
Yeah.
Just a fine. So you're looking at these offenses, and you go, this is just fine-worthy? And you're talking like Odell, well, he took a shot at some guy's head. I'm like, this happens on a weekly basis. Right. We have penalties for this.
And that's what the league was getting at. Obviously, there was emotion in that hit to Josh Norman. Clearly, Odell Beckham had him beat on a touchdown earlier in the game. Obviously, he couldn't come down with the catch. Maybe it was frustration on Odell Beckham's part, but there was some sort of emotional attachment there for him to make that retaliation. Now, my question for you, because I agree with you, is, because we talked about it offset. Andre Johnson and Cortland Finnegan full out had a brawl a couple of years ago, and yeah, they got ejected from the game, but there was no suspension. I don't know what the fine was, or even if there was a fine, but you've basically got MMA in the NFL in that particular instance, and nothing got done about it. Now,
it just kind of got left behind, which is funny because Cortland Finnegan actually plays in the Panthers now. But you're talking about rewarding instigators is what's happening when Norman gets nothing from this, really. He's not being held accountable. This is my problem. Right. Everybody's like, ODB lost his mind. He needs to be held accountable. That's great. But there's other parties involved. When two kids on the playground throw punches at each other, one kid calls another kid an absolute lard ass and then takes a shot at his face, and the other kid retaliates by going after him for the last 10 minutes of recess. You can't just punish the kid going after him for the last 10 minutes of recess.
Now, I don't think that Norman should be suspended, though, personally.
No, but he should be fined. He should be held accountable for his actions. There's two parties that clearly aren't being held accountable for their actions. One, Norman took shots at Odell Beckham's face.
He flat out body slammed him at some point.
All right?
Yeah.
And he did not get penalized for it. He needs to be held accountable for the fact that he went and did this. See, when Cortland Finnegan and Andre Johnson went on it years ago, Cortland Finnegan and Andre Johnson got thrown out. Right. Which leads me to the next point. The officials need to be held accountable.
Yes,
now,
I couldn't agree with you more there.
You have to really say, okay, let them play, which is fine. But when they cross a barrier and they start doing illegal things to each other, like hands to the face, taking shots to each other's face, and don't think Odell's the only person who took a shot at Norman's face. Norman took a shot back as well. Actually,
this was something that was heated all week. These guys were going at it on Twitter.
Oh yeah, you had Carolina Panthers, as reported by play-by-play and color commentators, Buck and Aikman, saying a couple of the Panthers players came over. It was either the sideline reporter, she said that the Panthers players went over to Norman after, in a period of the first quarter, said, that's enough, you need to stop. But the instigation didn't really stop. You had an instigator here, and the referees didn't really call any penalties, which let it get to this point. So you're saying right now that the referees, again, let it get to this point. And if you want to let them play, that's fine. But you're going to suspend a guy after the referees clearly let it get out of hand, and this is their responsibility to take job on the field. And because the referee, and this is the question a lot of people have asked, Tom, and let me ask you this. If the referees kick out Odell Beckham out of this game, does Odell Beckham get suspended for a game?
Oh, that's tough. I don't think he does. And then that's just going back to the whole Cortland Finnegan, Andre Johnson thing. I think they would have just said, okay, you learned your lesson. Another time, though, we got to fine you. And this goes back, and the reason why I think they have to suspend Odell Beckham is just because he's rapidly becoming the face of the NFL, or one of the faces, just due to that insane one-hand catch he had. And
that's a PR move.
I agree. But, I mean, this is why they chose now, because he's a prima donna, because, I mean, dude, I work in an after-school program, and all these kids, they go, oh, I'm going to try to Odell it, Mr. Tom. I'm going to try to Odell. I mean, this guy has literally created a culture with the one-handed catch that he had, kind of like how Moss did all those years. And essentially, you got to basically tell this guy who's on his way to superstardom, who's probably got posters in little boys' rooms who look up to this guy, we got to suspend you now because it just wouldn't work if we let you play next week. Now, going back to your point, I agree with you. They don't care about Josh Norman's safety. They just care about making an example of Odell Beckham so that this stuff doesn't happen in the future. Now, I'm with you. And one more point I want to make before I kick it back to you. I'm with you with this officiating. At some point, somebody's got to be held accountable. These guys get paid a lot of money to work 1 or 2 days a week. You've been terrible with the officiating, the calls, whether penalties that shouldn't be penalties or penalties that are getting called, but it's clearly like nothing. It's just so frustrating to watch the NFL officiating, and this goes to the top, too. I'm talking like brass, like the top guys that are in the officiate. There's got to be a better job done. Someone needs to be fired. Something has to change, though, for these NFL officials to get it right. Nick, what were you going to say?
How could this have been prevented? Absolutely. Not letting them boys be boys in the first quarter. If you see this getting out of hand after a body slam, you have to throw the flags there and stop the instigation. Officials need to be held accountable when they let things like this get out of hand. They could have, thrown flags earlier to set a tone for the game. They could have had control over the emotion in the game as far as where that was going, and they clearly didn't. They could have had control by kicking them out in the second or even third quarter, but they didn't. They let this one get out of hand, and there were two parties involved with this, and you mentioned it. Player safety. Player safety
It's not about player safety.
It needs to be the concern when you suspend somebody, right? Why are we suspending Odell Beckham? Because what he did could be dangerous to player safety. Right. And really, is that the concern in the NFL? Absolutely not. They
PR.
continuously.
You said it, Nick. You said it best.
It's a PR move because, again, you mentioned it, and I agree with you that if this isn't Odell Beckham, you have to ask this question too. One, if he gets kicked out of the game, does he get suspended? No. Okay, laughing at player safety there. And again, I bring up Ndamukong Suh from last year with Aaron Rodgers, who again had a calf injury, had his calf stepped on, and Aaron Rodgers, he would have had to have his calf stepped on the game after to have like his calf like blown up.
And what was the PR move? And what was the PR move there? It was
sweep it under the rug.
Let's sweep it under the rug because the Lions got to go play a playoff game in Dallas the very next week, and we don't want the narrative argument to be the Cowboys won because Ndamukong Suh got suspended.
So the original question was, is the NFL right in suspending Odell Beckham, right? And I'm going to say yes.
I'm going to say yes, too.
But are they doing it for the right reasons?
And that's where we have our questions.
Absolutely not. They are not doing it for the right reasons. And that's where I'm really frustrated because the refs need to be held accountable. Josh Norman, the instigator, needs to be held accountable. Odell Beckham needs to be held accountable for his actions. Everybody does.
Again, I don't think Norman should be suspended, though.
No,
I think he should be fined.
You can't have a group of – you're rewarding instigators.
Yeah.
How do you not see this? You say Odell Beckham setting a bad example for kids, and you got a guy who's like, oh well, as long as you can get a guy to act like that, that's a hothead. I mean, what's your approach versus Des Bryant in a game like that if the Panthers and the Cowboys faced
And
off
we've
in the
seen
playoffs?
him explode on the sidelines before. It's
Or
not like he has no history of this.
And then what are you going to do? Oh, it's just Des Bryant. He's got to keep his head cool, things like this. But if you're doing things that are illegal to provoke this action, you're doing things that are illegal still. It wasn't just physical play from Norman.
Right.
There was more than that. And anybody who watched the game could have really seen that. So, and this is the problem I have, is that there's no procedure set in place for the NFL that really handles this well, besides, oh, well, we'll just handle it as it comes. And the fact is, they haven't.
Right.
It's an image-based move. ODB, he's the only reason why this is being a suspension and why this deal is big. And on top of that, more people watched this game. ODB did this against the Bills. That game wasn't as well watched. This game is like a nationally televised game, essentially, for the 1 o'clock games with Joe Buck and Troy Aikman. It just had more attention. And this is why. It's all PR. And we got to hold the NFL accountable and just call them out and make sure that if we're going to have ODB get the suspension, Pac-Man Jones, Adamakan Soup,
all these guys got to get suspension.
Exactly.
And my final point on this is with Odell Beckham, you got to realize last week you kicked a football. I mean, you obviously we talked about the Bills and the fact that he punched other Bills members in the face mask. This kid needs to grow up, and I understand he's 22 going on 23, but at a certain point you got to realize, and I'm talking to you, Odell Beckham, not like you're watching this, but you have a reputation to maintain as potential. I mean, Eli Manning's not going to play forever. You, if paid, are going to be the face of this franchise. When are you going to start waking up and realize you can't throw little temper tantrums on the football field just because you didn't get your way? I mean, you cost the Giants a game by kicking that football and costing us 15 yards. It's got to get to a point where Odell is being more mature because, again, they'll just keep slapping him with suspension after suspension after suspension. So, obviously, the final verdict, we both agree that he should be suspended, but I think you have your own reasons as to why you think the NFL, something needs to change, whether it's officiating, whoever's controlling this thing. It's got I think what we're griping about here is we want consistency. We want these calls, these decisions, whoever's making them, to just be consistent about it, so that way there's all is fair in the NFL, and if you mess up, and you know why. So, any final point, Nick?
No, 100%. It's got to be consistency, but you got to hold every party accountable for their actions, not just put this off on one person as a PR move and sweep the other problems underneath the rug. Fact of the matter is, the officials had just as bad of a day yesterday as Odell Beckham did.
And if this was really about player safety, Nick, we wouldn't be suspending a guy for a year like Josh Gordon because he smoked a little weed. I mean, if it was about player safety, you hit a guy. Why is he getting one game and Josh Gordon gets 16?
That's true.
If it's about player safety, right?
Make it about player safety. Could have made a statement, suspend him for the rest of the year. 2 games. Giants in the playoffs hopes.
Right. Well, this was our rant on Odell Beckham. I'm a Giants fan, so, obviously this frustrates me, but this just frustrates football fans, just seeing that kind of play on the field.
I'm a Bills-Packers fan, man. This just makes me angry because I'm sick of how the NFL handles these situations, Tom.
I'm with you. Something's got to change this offseason. Maybe it's Goodell, maybe it's some higher-up officiating. We will find out. But this was Debategate, guys. Thank you guys for joining our show. If you guys have something else you'd like to say, voice your opinion in the comments section below. Also, follow Nick on Twitter at Nicholas Lippa if you know what you're doing. Also, check out WBNY. They've got great stuff. What's the TuneIn channel? 91.3 on TuneIn, right?
Yep, 91.3 FM, WBNY, Buffalo, right under the Buffalo area of TuneIn app.
So check it out. They got great stuff. Also, check out Rebel Media, Dynasty Nerds. They got good content. We'll be back here with more videos. Fantasy First podcast got a little bit delayed. My girlfriend basically got into the finals in fantasy, so we stayed up all night. There was no way in hell I was getting up at 5 a.m. to do a show. So that'll be out tomorrow for you guys. It's finals time, so check in and lock in on that. Thanks, Nick, for joining this controversial show. Hopefully the NFL gets better. So thanks, guys, for joining the show, and we will see you here next time. High Stakes Sports Debates.